Hi there, I'm Natasha Davies. I'm the CEO of Davies here in Cambridge. To bring us back to poverty, stigma is a massive contributing factor to the experience of people living in poverty in the UK. I challenge the panel to really address what they think when walking through our city on any given day when there are human beings in sleeping bags and sleeping in shop doorways. The constant refrain is one of, well, what did that person do to deserve that situation? Is it a workshop mentality? What can you do to address and challenge the stigma?
Is that better? Yes. Thank you so much for the question, Natasha, and for all the work that you do for Davies as well. For me, it's one of the most harrowing moments actually I leave the council chamber. So I'm City Council in Castle Ward, and I'm sure I'll have the same experience when we walk down the street, sort of going down towards St Andrew Street, and you see people lying there in their sleeping bags. And it's one of the most shameful moments for me, often leaving after those big conversations we have about equality and our hopes for the future. I think the stigma is a huge part of it, and one of the things which the Liberal Democrats have campaigned hard to try to overturn is the Vagrancy Acts. So one of the new Conservative bills is to bring, it still retains the Vagrancy Act, which is a historic piece of legislation which criminalises rough sleeping. That's absolutely horrific because no one makes that choice. It's not a lifestyle choice to be sleeping on the streets. I would also applaud here a lot of the good work that I know the Good Shepherd does, and also Food Cycle and other charities in the city. I'm looking to play the organ here roughly once a month, and they agree to have me, and I see some of the work they do here to make sure that being in poverty and needing support with your food isn't a stigma. So rather than inviting people to a food bank, of course it's important, what about if we all sat down and had lunch together and you pay what you feel, and you bring what you bring and share it together, and that helps make sure people have dignity in that situation.
Excellent, thanks.
I'm going to stand if that's okay, because then I can see you. Thank you. Yeah, we have to end the stigma. We just have to. Now, when I was growing up, I saw that stigma from my parents, because my dad wasn't working, because they were on benefits, and there was an assumption they had no agency, and it was all their fault. And quite frankly, there, but for the grace of God, go most of us when it comes to homelessness. It won't take much. So I think we have to keep making those arguments. I think we have to be really strong on that. I think we have to deal with hidden homelessness too, because there are so many people sofa surfing, and that's just this terrible hidden problem. And I think we have to model it. We've done so much work together as a city to try to change that approach, to look at things like the what we call the pods, to get people into proper move-on accommodation. We've got so much more to do, and it needs to come, some of that, from central government, and that support needs to come from there.
Thank you.
Facing a disaster for the homeless community here. And I was just reading yesterday this newspaper about the British Medical Journal about a day with London's homelessness GPs. We don't have any health care for our homeless people here. Zero health care. Just stand in the market square and have a look to see how many of them are struggling. Mental illness, problems, shouting, dirty, they don't have a place to sleep. I can say completely with a big mouth, they failed to look after them over the last few years, maybe the last 5 years. They're getting worse and worse, more and more of them, and nothing done for them because the numbers are getting worse and worse, and they are more starving, more people. We need to stand, we need to change that policies because they failed basically. Go have a look to the market square, have a look, just stand there for 30 minutes and see the struggle basically. My mom, she lost her house back in 1948, and she had to move at 10. This is the reason why I'm standing with the homeless community. Thank you very much.
Disgusting that there is a stigma associated with being poor and being homeless, but it's the truth. If you speak to anybody who's on the street, they'll say that people spit on them, people kick them, people steal their stuff. You know, there's no respect, because these are weaker members of society, so presumably it's easy to do that, because there's no comeback. On the other hand, how to solve this? Is it a matter of education? And also how to solve the problem of rough sleepers. It's not so straightforward, it's not just poverty, there's also mental health, there's also people who just don't fit into the mold of what we're trying to work out in our heads here. So it's a complex problem which could do with a bit more effort to solve. That's all.
I think with any form of ignorance, the best way to try and address it is through better education. I used to work with the Citizens Advice Bureau many years ago and interacted and worked with a lot of homeless people. And they said the biggest challenge they face is the way people don't even view them as human beings. People walk past and try not to look, thinking they're being polite, when they'd rather be spoken to and treated like a human being, which they are. But I think that's just the way people are brought up. And the only way to change that, whether it's through children or adults as well, is educating them that, as we've said already tonight, people don't choose to be homeless. There's a multitude of reasons why people are homeless. And as soon as people actually open their eyes and realise that, I think the behaviour and the attitude changes. But I think, frankly, most people don't know much about it, maybe don't want to know much about it. But if we remove that ignorance and educate people better, I hope that behaviour will change. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so the world's first museum of homelessness opened back in May in London. 1 in 50 Londoners is homeless. 1 in 50. So when someone is seeking, so I'd say that that's a failure of our society, not a lifestyle choice, not at all. If you just think about this example that I read about recently, when someone is seeking housing, they're obliged to accept the council's first offer of a home, otherwise they're deemed as intentionally homeless. So there was this chap who wanted to get a home, he wanted to get out of his tent, and then he was a recovering drug addict, and he went into a house with other people who were addicts, and he didn't want to be there because he was trying to get himself well. And so he refused that house, and then he's been, branded by the council as intentionally homeless. He's gone back to his tent. So that's a failure of our society. That's somebody trying. I don't know how he did it. I mean, he's doing amazingly. But yeah, we need to really address stigma, and addressing the politics of cruelty in our country at the moment as well. Thank you.